Minnesota safety Tyler Nubin has to make a statement this week versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. Marvin Harrison Jr., Cade Stover, Emeka Ibuka, can he help slow these guys down? We're going to talk about that next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. I'm your boy Dorian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout over with the Draft Network, and I got to kick this thing over to my guy, Mr. LSU 2019 national champion with the LSU Bengal Tigers, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, man, the other side of this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your favorite podcast to tap into every single day, man, 24/7, 365. We are who you tap into. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Before we get this thing started, man, go ahead, go ahead, comment, go ahead, subscribe to this podcast, man. This is the best NFL Draft Podcast because we talk college football, we talk NFL football, but we always say it starts with the NFL Draft. DP, today's slate, man, we have make a statement, right? You went with the defender. I'm going with a quarterback. I'm going to drop that tease right there, man. Then we're going with the where you at. Those prospects who have not performed well, who have not performed to the summer grades, we have to call you out. We have to talk about it. We have to see if it's about scheme, roster management, what's going on. And then we're going to finish this thing up with a little NFL discussion, rookie spotlights. What rookies have to perform well in order for their teams to win this weekend in the NFL? DP, before we get that started, why don't we hit them with our title sponsor?
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Keith, we talked on yesterday's pod about the safety position, and I talked about my top two, was my top two, of course, Tyler Nubin being number two. And this week with Minnesota, man, we know that Minnesota's not a powerhouse team or anything like that, but they have a big game on the schedule. You're going into, Ohio State. And when you think about the litany of weapons Ohio State, and it seems like they're healthy now, Keith, offensively, right? With Travion Henderson back in the backfield, Emeka Ibuka back in the lineup, Cade Stover, Julian Fleming, and Marvin Harrison Jr., they've been holding down the fort for the most part while those guys were trying to get back to full strength. Tyler Nubin is a 6'2", 210-pound safety that can do a lot of different things, right? And when you look at the numbers of him, right, when he's targeted 13 times in coverage this year, only allowed 3 receptions for 12 yards, right? But he has 4 pass breakups, 0 touchdowns allowed, and he's intercepted 4 passes. So especially when you think about the erratic play of Ohio State quarterback, right? Kyle McCord, while he shows some semblance and flashes of, okay, I can play this position, I can get the ball to my playmakers. Yeah, he's got some moments where you're like, Kyle, what are you doing? Like, who are you throwing this ball to, Kyle? And Tyler Nubin, I think speed-wise, frame-wise, he is an NFL starting safety. And I think this is one of those games where you're talking a resume game. If he can go out there and take, be over the top, right, of Marvin Harrison Jr., take away that deep ball, right, take away those type of big explosive plays, but also walk down into the box, be a +1 to help kind of corral and slow down Travion Henderson. And when necessary, and you're in the middle of the field, handling big body Cade Stover, I think Tyler Nubin has a real shot to cement himself as truly the safety 2 of this class. Behind, for me, Cameron Kitchens, but also as a potential early second round pick of the 2024 NFL Draft.
But DP, you mentioned all of those Ohio State weapons, right? You talk about Marvin Harrison Jr., Cade Stover, Emeka Egbuka, Trevion Henderson. Seems like Tyler Nubin is gonna have to be everywhere, DP. He's gonna have to be all over the field, man. And I think that's what's gonna make this exciting. And like you say, you talk about a resume game because who does he cover, right? Who do they feel comfortable with him covering? Do they feel like he should play over the top of Marvin Harrison Jr.? Do you man him up with Cade Stover, right? Do you put him as the guy to stop the vertical threat that is Emeka Egbuka, or do you put him in the box to stop Trevion Henderson and this run game? I really like that, DP. But then it also, it's just a balance of how Tyler Nubin is going to have to approach it. So like I said, I think this is a really good resume game. DP, for me, I told you, I said I'm going with a guy on the offense side of the football. I'm going with the guy that I didn't expect to go with, right? But I watched the film this past weekend. I'm like, you know what? I kind of like you. And that is Carson Beck, the quarterback from Georgia, DP. We haven't been able to say that the past couple of years. It almost don't sound right saying it, DP. Honestly, been a while. It's probably been about 5-10 years, right? Because they didn't play Justin Fields. But I like what he does, DP. And I'm looking at the stats real quick, right? Last week, he went for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. But you putting together a resume against Florida, DP. And that was a game that kind of fell off the rails for Florida. But he played well. He still had 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, right? Kentucky, he threw for 389 and 4 touchdowns. UAB, another 338. Auburn, another 313. So this is a guy that's, you can't just say that they're consistently just playing ball control type offense, right? And just don't mess it up. Like, no, they're giving him real opportunities to make plays, and he's making plays against Ole Miss, man. When he dotted Brock Bowers up right in the end zone for the touchdown, man, that was on the money throw. Then he had another throw to Ladd McConkey, right? Like the guy is just flat out performing. So I watched him, DP, jumped into the tape, and I was extremely impressed with what I seen for Carson Beck. Now, this is the thing. I don't know if I'm impressed on the scale of NFL quarterback impressed or impressed on the scale of better than what we've seen from Georgia impressed, right? There's two different levels to this. Because I mean, obviously, and because you talk about it with LSU, right? We've had a long history of quarterbacks, right? Of not having great quarterbacks. So remember when we had Zach Mettenberger, right? And it was LSU finally got a quarterback, right? And he was solid for LSU, but obviously the NFL career didn't necessarily pan out. But you don't know if it's that or like when we had Joe Burrow and it's like, nah, this is different. This is the real deal, right? So I'm really excited to watch Carson Beck. They're playing against Tennessee DP. They're playing against Tennessee, which is it's a rivalry game. They should win this going away. But I would say this, when I watched this Georgia team, because I was close, and you know what? We got to admit our flaws, right? Saturday, I got on the live show. I predicted an upset, DP. I predicted Ole Miss to win. Not only did they not win, Georgia blew them out, right? They say that, you know what? It is levels to this. And then I jumped into the film. And I really went back to it and watched this team with a healthy Brock Bowers, because Brock Bowers hasn't been healthy in a couple of years. And I said, you know what? Georgia is on the cusp of transitioning like Alabama did a few years ago when they went from just solely being a defense and a run game and a ball control team to potentially being a high-powered offense that can throw the ball all over the field, right? And that's what I want to check out, and that's what I'm looking for Carson Beck to make a statement, because they ranked number 1. I thought it was a little bit shaky at first, but if it's just a different version, then I get it, right? And I want to see Carson Beck come out here again and show why they're the number 1 team.
No, I mean he's played good ball, and you talked about like with Brock Bowers, he missed I think like a month maybe or so with that tightrope. Because for the I think it was sprained ankle, and you just saw the impact he had, right? Pulling 2 defenders on that Ladd McConkey touchdown, and it was a rope. It was a dime from Carson Beck. Just drove that ball right between 2 closing defenders. So you saw the arm talent, the ball placement, the accuracy, and those are things you couldn't say for a couple of years at Georgia. Arm talent, ball placement, accuracy. You couldn't say those things, right? So I think do I think he's going to be a guy we talk about in April? No. I think he's going back to Georgia and try to be one of the top quarterbacks selected in next year's class, right? But I think that he's a guy that, and crazy enough, I'll throw one more name out there. He's the opposite. He's in the same game. Joe Milton. Joe Milton has played pretty efficient football for the most part. I think he only has like 4 or 5 interceptions this year. They don't have the playmakers that Hendon Hooker was throwing to last year, man. Or the offensive line. It's not exactly the same. So, not having Jalen Hyatt, not having Cedric Tillman, Brew McCoy, who was supposed to step into that Cedric Tillman big body role, he got hurt early in the season, right? So Joe Milton is kind of playing with a not so great situation in terms of wide receiver help, but he's playing solid football. And I think if he can go out there and showcase himself well, it'll help his draft stock, especially against the University of Georgia.
Yeah, and I DP, because Joe Milton was a guy that we kind of talked about being disappointed a little bit early on, but it seems like he's raised his play just to a level of being consistent, right? And you know what you're going to get week in and week out. So that's definitely a game to tap into, just to see if Tennessee is able to pull some things off. If their head coach, right, with Josh Heupel, I believe, has some things in his bag to be able to pull some things off. So we will see. But DP, coming up next, the Where You At segment. Where you at? Those players that were supposed to perform well. That's a tongue twister, DP. Supposed to perform well this season. They haven't quite lived up to the billing. We're going to talk about why. And we're going to ask them simply, where you at? Coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league specifically created for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, Kevin Durant plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. Do you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in Prize Picks community each and every week. This week on Prize Picks, I am taking the under. Tommy DeVito, quarterback for the New York Giants versus the Washington Commanders, under 158.5 passing yards. Guys, all you need to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Where you at? Chico Bennett Jr., edge rusher from the University of Virginia. Those Cavaliers, right? Not the Cleveland Cavaliers, but the Virginia Cavaliers. A guy that Keith, I was really excited about. After watching him in the summer, he had 24 hurries and pressures last year. 2 forced fumbles, 8 sacks, and just watching him, I was like, hey, he knows how to get in the backfield, baby. He knows how to rush the passer. I'm like, man, now with another year under his belt, I'm expecting him to ascend, to get better, right? And to see the production take another step. Well, not so much. Not so much. He's got 1 sack and 23 hurries this year. No forced fumbles this season. And it's like, where you at, Chico? You know what I'm saying? Chico, where you at, baby? Because I don't know how you drop off in terms of sack production in such a way to go from 8 to just 1 on the season. And he started pretty much almost every single game this year, right? And you're talking about pass rush snaps. He has 219 pass rush snaps. You got 219 pass rush snaps to 1 sack. That's crazy. Those are crazy numbers to think about right now. DP, so it's like, for me, I'm interested. I got to get into the tape, Keith, so I can know and fully see what's going on. But when we were talking about this segment, I went and looked at somebody I was high on. I was like, where's my guy Chico, man?
I wanted to ask you, because you said you were high on him, what was some of the things or the main thing that got you excited about Chico? Because I'm sure, obviously, if people weren't aware of him last year, they're definitely not aware of him this year if he only has 1 sack. So what were you looking for in Chico Bennett, or what did you see last year that made you like, okay, this is an intriguing prospect that I kind of want to soft circle and kind of highlight?
Man, power. He had good quickness off the ball. He's listed at like 6'4", 6'5", like 252, 255. So he got an NFL frame. He stood up, put his hand in the dirt. He just like, and Chris, thing about it was he did all of that production last year, and I felt like he was raw from a fundamental standpoint with his hands, right? In terms of his pass rush repertoire, hand counters, things like that. I felt like he was raw last year with that. So to have 8 sacks, forced fumbles, hurries, pressures, and still not be a guy that's like very like fundamentally sound in terms of how he deconstructs blocks and wins the edge from play to play. I was excited off of that. I'm like, okay, if you can do that being raw, I'm expecting you to go in the offseason, put in the work, right? Get better, right? And take a step forward and then come out and be one of those diamonds in the rough, right? Like one of those guys that pop out of nowhere and he's like, man, he's got 10 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 30, 40 hurries, whatever. And it's like, this dude's playing well and he looks the part. I just haven't seen like the numbers show it. And I mean, even though I watched UVA play live games, I remember watching them like, is he on the field? Because I just didn't feel that impact from him. So I'm gonna go and watch some tape, after these weekends games and kind of try and answer my own question. But Chico, Chico, where you at, baby?
Well, DP, the guys I have, okay, they're part of this. I have two guys. Let me say that I have two guys. They part of they go to the same school. They're on the same football team. They're even in the same unit. They're on the same side of the football, DP. And we've leaned into Caleb Williams, right? Big media has got on him. We've talked about it, right, on this podcast. We've talked about holding on to the football, getting rid of the ball quicker. We've seen it all, right? It's all unleashing, right? Everything that was said preseason in the first 5 weeks, that has all come undone, DP. But, we are a go-to the source podcast. We are go to the source evaluators, talent, scouts, right? Draft analysts. That's what we do. We go to the source. And so I go back to my scouting notes, DP, over the summer, and I say, hey, I had two guys that I had highlighted in soft circle that was supposed to have big years. And instead of big years, DP, they have combined 600 yards receiving from Caleb Williams, 600 yards receiving, and that is wide receiver Mario Williams and wide receiver Dorian Singer. Both were supposed to be intricate parts of this receiver core, and you simply ask, where you at, right? And it's not that Caleb Williams is not throwing the football. We know he is throwing the football, and he's putting up numbers. Taj Washington, 5'8", 5'9", I'll probably say he's 5'8", 160 pounds. He's their leading wide receiver. He has 1,000 yards. Right, so Caleb Williams is looking for him, and you see this guy playing in the slot, and he's doing different things. I want to ask, where is Mario Williams? Where is Dorian Singer? Because you would think, DP, entering the season, right, coming off of last year, Jordan Addison was there, and you've seen flashes of Mario Williams, and it's like, I think this might be the next guy, right? Like, he's next up. He came with Caleb Williams from Oklahoma, right? They both came here together, and you would expect that just naturally, hey, this is the next step. What Dorian Singer, right? Transfers from, what was he at Arizona, I believe? At Arizona to USC. You came because you wanted to play with a better quarterback, right? You wanted to get the receptions. You wanted to get the touches. And it's just all just not there. And it's a larger picture conversation, right? Is this not Lincoln Riley getting them involved, right? Is it them having to play different positions? Is it them, right? Because I will say Mario Williams, there were some questions that I had. Think he is an NFL talent, right? But it was, can he be a number one, right? And that was more of my conversation. But I think now the conversation, people are asking, hey, can he be a number two? Can he be a number three? And we've seen this conversation kind of downward spiral because people have questioned the success of this position. And that's taking that slot wide receiver gadget guy and taking him really high. And what I mean is that when you comp all of those guys that's similar to a Kadarius Toney, how many of them have been extremely successful, and not just that part, consistent. I think that's the biggest part. How many of them been consistent producers in the NFL? Because I think about your Wan'Dale Robinson, somebody that I really like, right? The one guy that you can say, DP, maybe that you like to that level would have been Jalen Waddle, right? Like, he's probably been the most successful sub 5'10" wide receiver, explosive gadget guy, slot guy that has done it. So that has to be my two guys, DP, for where you at.
No, I mean, and it's warranted, right? Because you're playing with Caleb Williams in an air raid offense, right? And Mario Williams not only came to USC and followed Caleb Williams, he followed Lincoln Riley too. So it's like you got the same coach, you got the same QB, right? One of the elite kind of QB prospects, a top tier QB prospects, in a scheme that is going to give you space and opportunity to perform. And I'm with you. I thought that Mario Williams was going to take that next step this year as well, and we just have not seen it, and it's disappointing. Same thing for Dorian Singer. I think he's Dorian Singer's like 6'1", like 6'6", somewhere in there. A 200-pound receiver that can work on the outside, work in the slot. He has a varying skill set, a diverse skill set, and you expected him to kind of step into this offense and be a playmaker for Caleb Williams as well. And I just don't understand what's going on. You know what I mean? For Taj Washington and Brendan Rice to be your top two guys, where coming into the season, these two guys that you brought up, we kind of expected to be in that mix to be the top guys. And no, it's absolutely disappointing, Keith.
Yup, disappointing to say the least, man. And like I said, we're gonna get down to the bottom of it, but we had to see where you at, right? Where you at? Segment DP. Let's keep this thing going, keep it flowing. NFL conversation coming up next. Rookie spotlight. What rookies have to perform well for the NFL team to win this weekend? We're about to get into that conversation.
Whenever the game clock stops, you know what that means? That it's time to order in on DoorDash. Guys, I live in the Greenville County of South Carolina. And after watching games or going to a tailgate or, just having my favorite watch party favorites, I love to order from the Cheesecake Factory. I love cheesecake. Me and my wife both. Our son does as well. And they have an assortment, a variety of flavors that you can order and then have it dropped off right at your front door. Think about that. Having perfect, delicious dessert dropped off at your front door, especially after you ate pizza, wings, burgers, sodas, you name it. Whatever you eat during your watch party favorites, your watch party favorites, whatever you eat during the watch party, you want to be able to top it off with a nice piece of cheesecake or dessert. And the Cheesecake Factory is my place to go. So if you're in the Greenville County area, you can do the same thing. Order on DoorDash and have it delivered right to your front door. Guys, get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCKED23. The rookie spotlight, guys, always shines bright here on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And for me, my rookie spotlight, and Keith, we didn't talk about this, so I don't know if we bump heads on this or not. I'm going quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Dorian Thompson Robinson. DTR,
I like that.
Man.
I like that a whole lot.
Like, this was a guy I liked, while he was at college. I liked this game. I felt like, while some people were like, oh, he's going to have to switch to slot receiver, stuff like that, I felt like he could play in the league.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that watching DTR. He had a grown man presence about himself. I thought that, and I don't listen. He playing the Ravens. Oh, they're not playing the Ravens. I'm sorry.
They got the Steelers this week.
They had the Steelers. I knew it was another AFC North opponent. But they have the Steelers, which is another really good defense. So still apply the same point is that we don't know if the stats, right, are going to show well. And, you're starting as a rookie and playing as a rookie. It may not be bad football, but I like the spotlight because you really want to see if you're Cleveland, if you have something there. But you can continue, DP.
No. And that's where I was going to, Keith, is that with you're going to go into 2024 will be year 3 of this fully guaranteed deal from Deshaun Watson. And between the suspension and now the injuries, man, like, you haven't gotten the most bang for your buck. Like, you haven't gotten the most out of the money that you spent.
A bang, right? Like, not even just the most bang.
True,
You didn't get
exactly.
a bang.
We have not seen that final. What was that? 2020, 2019? That version of Deshaun Watson where he led the league in passing and all. We haven't seen that, right? So I think with Dorian Thompson Robinson, you talked about it, Keith. The Cleveland Browns can run the ball. Doesn't matter who in the backfield, right? Like they can run the football. So having Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt is going to make his job easier. But I think now Kevin Stefanski, can you get him incorporated? And can you incorporate DTR's legs? Because at this stage of their careers, I would say he's a more dynamic runner and rusher than Deshaun Watson. So you think about the zone read game, right? You might even get, you can come out in 22 in the pistols in the two pistols beside him in shotgun. You can go 22, right? And you can legitimately kind of triple option this thing. You can do a lot of different things because he's used to that. But also, Amari Cooper's going to make his life easier. Getting David Njoku the football. Elijah Moore, who has started to come on as of late for this offense, man. Like, he has played Cedric Tillman, a guy he's used to, because in the preseason they were out there balling together. Mm-hmm. So I'm putting the spotlight right on the stage. I'm putting the spotlight on DTR because Cleveland has a Super Bowl winning defense. Their run game is good. They have enough pieces offensively. They just need consistency from the QB. And I was excited to hear that they said, no, we're not going back to PJ Walker. We're going to let DTR take the reins from here. And if he can play well, knock off the Steelers, we'll keep moving up the standings in the AFC North and help get this team into the playoffs, it can say a lot. It can say a whole lot for him as their future after this contract runs out for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and DP, I like that because I just thought DTR had an NFL presence about himself, man, and it flashed some in the preseason.
Yeah, because you met him down in Cali, over in Cali.
Yeah. Cali, what that was 2 years, not this past summer, but summer before.
Yeah,
and he just had a presence about himself, man. Because even when you think about him going to UCLA, he didn't go there with that scheme being in place, right? It's just that things had to alter and adjust. So I do like that, DP. I'm kind of going back to the well again, but this is just going to be a consistent draft conversation. And as this thing unfolds, we're going to have this conversation. And that's the Tennessee Titans, DP. I have to go with Will Levis again. And I know it's not at the point where we're beating a dead horse. You know what? We're just in the middle of this evaluation, right? Like, and I want to put the rookie spotlight because the GM is going to have to make a decision. The head coach is going to have to make a decision. The owner is going to have to make a decision. And it's like, okay, Keith, why back to Will Levis, right? Okay, cool. We started against Atlanta. We went 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Guess what? You are our franchise quarterback. There is no doubt about it, DP. You are the man. 130 passer rating, right? Then we followed up with the Pittsburgh game, right? 22 of 39, 260 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, right? I can live with it. It's against Pittsburgh. It's against the Steelers. That's okay. We're a rookie. We're going to keep it moving. DP, after that, Tampa Bay, the same team that C.J. Stroud just tore up and lit up for 5 touchdowns and 400 yards, right? Went 19 of 39, 199 yards, right? 48% completion percentage, no touchdowns, 1 interceptions, 4 sacks, right? So it's which way are we trending, right? Because this is going to be the issue, DP, that we talked about this again. They're eventually going to trend themselves into a top 5 pick. And what are you going to do? So I think that it has to be on that. Like, and everybody in the NFL should be watching because right now I'm looking at Tankathon, DP. The Tennessee Titans are 3-6, right? And it's 3 teams tied for 3-6. Chicago is 3-7. So you're 1 weekend away from having a top 5 pick. And then now the fans being intrigued with, hey, can we get Caleb Williams or Drake May, right? Like, and now the fans are thinking about that. And then now you're trying to figure out what are we going to do with Will Levis? What are we going to do moving forward? So that's why my rookie spotlight is because as we had this draft conversation, the Tennessee Titans, if they continue to lose, they're going to be a major factor in what goes on.
No, 100%. And I think he's just got to like beat the scouting report because I did the scouting report on him, and the things I wrote down, the things I put in my scouting report, I've seen it every weekend since he started, and it's the same. Holding on to the football, not anticipating throws and windows, right? Like, and his deep ball accuracy and ball placement is not great. So it's like you got to improve on those things. And now, don't get me wrong, I know the offensive line. Andre Dillon may be the worst starting left tackle in football. Like, he is bad. I'm not going to sit here in front, right? But at the same time, Will has to, like, because I watched the tape and I'm like, there's throws to be made, Keith. There's guys open underneath. And I'll never forget. I wrote, Will Levis is a see it, throw it passer. And that's not good. Because when you don't see it, you don't throw it. And then what does that do? You hold on to the ball, you burp the baby. Now your offensive lineman gets beat, and now you're pressured or you get sacked. And I think he was one of the leaders in the class in terms of pressures that turned into sacks, leaving college and coming into for the 2023 NFL draft class. We looked at the quarterbacks. So I'm with you. Like, he's got to do enough. You don't have to win these games. Just do enough to where the team says, we believe in what you're doing. We believe in the steps you've made. We believe in your development. You're safe. You just need to do enough to where they do like the umpire in baseball and say you're safe, Will.
Yep. Hey, well, that's what it's at, right? Will Levis is trying to be safe with DP. You know what is a safe bet? A safe bet is you can bet on the Locked On NFL Draft will be here 24/7, 365 throughout this entire draft process with more Tennessee Titan conversation, Dallas Cowboys. We are letting this thing unfold team after team as this process goes throughout. So, man, you know where to tap in every single day, man. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. You can find DP Damian Parson on X at DP_NFL, man. Like we always like to say, man, y'all talk at us, tweet at us, man, comment at us, because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, thank y'all so much. Like he said, talk to us on YouTube. Talk to us on Twitter. I got some of y'all jumping my DMs on IG. Talk to us because we do talk back. Just come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.